as to the success or failure of this economy related to how it may be graded. The only question is whether the American people would give it a D for disaster or an F for failure. That's it. Nothing else. Now, House Democrats are going to continue to focus on driving down the high cost of living, fixing our broken healthcare system, and actually making life better for the American people. And we can start by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Time has run out. Democrats have been pressing our Republican colleagues for months to deal with the healthcare crisis that they have created. And in a matter of just a few weeks, tens of millions of Americans who live in every single state across this country are about to experience dramatically increased health care costs. In some instances, premiums are going to increase by $1,000 or $2,000 per month. How is that acceptable in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world? That because of congressional inaction, people are going to go bankrupt medically or will be unable to see a doctor when they need one, when their families need one, or when their children need one. House Democrats are going to continue to press our case. 214 Democrats, every single House Democrat, supports legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits and has signed a discharge petition to force an up or down vote. All we need are 4 House Republicans. Just 4. There are 219. All we need are 4 to join us. Keep your word to the American people that you are not going to let the Affordable Care Act tax credits expire. Questions?
What are you hoping to get sort of information from this Gang of 8 briefing? What do you hope to share? And just follow up to that, there's a provision in the NDAA that restricts some of the Pentagon travel budget if the video of that double tap strike is not released. Do you think that is an appropriate leverage point to try to force the hand of the Secretary?
The full video of the double tap strike should be released to the American people so that the American people have an opportunity to determine for themselves whether that strike killing people who was shipwrecked and by all accounts were not presenting any threat to American military personnel, whether that kind of seemingly extrajudicial killing is consistent with American values. If Pete Hegseth and the administration think that their actions are justifiable, what are they hiding from the American people? Release the video.
Thanks, Leader Jeffries. Outside of health care, what would Democrats do differently from Republicans in an effort to lower prices?
Well, here's what we should do. We need to get rid of the Trump tariffs. And we cannot be confident that the Supreme Court will actually follow the law, because rarely during the Trump presidency have they done that. Instead, they've just bent the knee to Donald Trump and his extreme agenda over and over and over again, notwithstanding the fact that lower courts and judges appointed by Democratic and Republican presidents have consistently tried to rein in Donald Trump's extremism, only to have the Supreme Court reverse course, as they just did in supporting a racially gerrymandered map in Texas. So what House Democrats will do immediately to try to drive down costs is to eradicate the Trump tariffs as they've currently been put into place. Why? Because everybody knows the Trump tariffs have increased costs on everyday Americans by thousands of dollars a year on grocery items and on goods that are needed to live a comfortable, quality life in America. So we can start there as it relates to dealing with the high cost of living in the United States of America. The other thing that House Democrats are committed to do is driving down housing costs. There's not a single thing that House Republicans or Senate Republicans or Donald Trump and his administration have done to address the housing crisis in the United States of America. We're almost at the end of the year. And the most significant expense that the American people have to deal with on a month-to-month basis is their housing costs, either their mortgage, home insurance, or their rent. And Donald Trump can't see fit to do a thing about it? House Republicans have done nothing to lower housing costs when the overwhelming majority of the American people know that housing costs are out of control in this country? And Donald Trump, the so-called builder, the so-called developer, nothing from him to actually make housing more affordable in the United States of America? So there are a lot of things that can be done better, but Republicans don't have the will to do it. That's the problem. They just don't have the will to do it because they'd rather reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks, just like what they did in the One Big Ugly Bill.
Leader Jeffries.
Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I want to ask about the AI commission that you announced this morning. Over the last couple of years, there have been several bipartisan task forces. There have been reports on AI. I'm curious first, what makes this different than the other previous commissions, task forces, reports on AI? And also, I spoke to a few, experts and scholars and academics about AI, and some of them are concerned that AI is going to follow the same road as social media, that Congress is still grappling with trying to figure out how to regulate social media 15, 20 years down the road and have yet to do so meaningfully. We're years into AI, and there hasn't been any meaningful legislation passed into law. Do you share that concern? Is there a sense of urgency in Congress on the House Democratic side to actually get some legislation passed into law beyond these reports and task forces and commissions?
Well, artificial intelligence is a transformative technology that has the potential for so much incredible good, particularly as it relates to medical breakthroughs and providing high quality academic and educational excellence to people who live in communities that have historically been under-resourced for decades. We want to make sure that America can continue to lead in the growth and development of artificial intelligence related to our companies, as opposed to the Chinese being able to dominate this space. But at the same period of time, of course, it's important to figure out what are the appropriate policies that can be put into place by the Congress to make sure that there's a uniform set of standards across the country and that prevent bad actors from entering into the AI space and enabling them to do harm to the American people, something that no one should want to see. And so the House Democratic Commission on Artificial Intelligence and the Innovation Economy is going to engage in a thoughtful exploration so we can develop a set of policies in consultation with stakeholders all across the country, including experts within the industry space, because House Republicans have decided to abdicate their responsibility. We had a bipartisan task force that produced a very forward-looking report at the end of the last Congress. But Mike Johnson has decided to do nothing to actually re-engage. And so time is up. The year has ended. There's no interest from the other side of the aisle in actually doing something meaningful in this space, engaging meaningfully with experts and academics and stakeholders all across the country so we can do something thoughtful. And that's why we've decided to launch this commission, led, of course, by Ted Lieu, Josh Gottheimer, Valerie Foushee, and, of course, as ex officio members Zoe Lofgren, and Frank Pallone.
Mr. Leader.
Thanks.
Which one is this?
You.
One of the most outspoken members of your caucus.
But with that voice, I hope you have a very thoughtful question.
Yes, very thoughtful. One of the most outspoken members of your caucus, Jasmine Crockett, announced to run for Senate on Monday. I'm curious what you make of that.
I haven't talked to Jasmine this week when she made the final decision to move forward, but she's an incredibly talented individual, a hard worker, and a fighter. She's going to be a very formidable candidate. Thanks. Second row.
Another question on AI, actually. President Trump has indicated that this week he's going to sign an executive order to sort of restrict states' abilities to regulate AI. Republicans in Congress tried to do a version of this over the summer with the reconciliation bill. The NDAA recently was talked about. I'm curious, just broadly, what you think of that idea. Do you think it's appropriate to try to preempt state-level AI laws in the absence of a more comprehensive federal framework?
Well, the Donald Trump my way or the highway approach on all the things, including artificial intelligence, is not in the best interest of the American people, and it's not even clear that he's got the lawful authority to do it. And of course, that's been the case over and over and over again. But Republicans bend the knee to Donald Trump. They just function in a cult-like fashion. And so as a result, what we've seen is Congress, in so many different areas, has advocated its responsibility to actually serve as a separate and co-equal branch of government. And instead, what Republicans do is that they just function as a reckless rubber stamp for Donald Trump's extreme agenda over and over and over again. And so in this particular area, artificial intelligence, with its transformative potential to really bring a lot of societal good to the American people, while at the same period of time, Congress having a responsibility to make sure that we can prevent bad actors from harming everyday Americans, we need Congress in the game. And on the House Republican side, they refuse to do anything thoughtful, common sense, or bipartisan. And that really is the reason why we've launched this House Democratic Commission. Thanks.
On ACA subsidies, we know you want a 3-year clean extension, but there is another plan out there introduced this morning by Brian Fitzpatrick, Eric Golden, others, bipartisan. It's a 2-year with some eligibility limits. Is that something that you could support? And secondly, Mr. Fitzpatrick says he's got a discharge petition he's ready to unveil on that bill. Would you sign that discharge petition if yours remains at 2 votes?
There's one discharge petition that I'm committed to at the moment, and that's the 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which currently has 214 members of Congress on it. So all we need are 4 Republicans to join us. I haven't had an opportunity to review the legislation being put forth by Representative Fitzpatrick and Representative Golden. Of course, I'll take a look at it to see if there's anything meaningful there as it relates to a path to getting something done. But many of my Republican colleagues talk a lot, but they don't produce anything. And we saw this consistently during the One Big Ugly Bill debate. These very same Republicans, in many instances, were the ones who were saying under no circumstances were they going to cut Medicaid. And then almost every single one of them, the exception of Representative Fitzpatrick and Representative Massey, every single one of them, other than those 2, voted to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. And in the same bill, they ripped $186 billion away from SNAP. These people literally stole food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans, and all of this was done so they can enact massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors. And then they made those permanent. And now here we are, clock is ticking, in December, Affordable Care Act tax credits expire on the 31st at the end of the month, and bills are still being introduced now? Listen, the most meaningful path forward, clearly, is for just a handful of Republicans to join us in the House, and for just a handful of Senate Republicans to vote in the next day or so on the bill that will be on the Senate floor that will extend the Affordable Care Act tax credit, so that tens of millions of people, including in dozens of Republican-controlled states, don't have their health care snatched away from them because it becomes unaffordable.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Two quick questions. One, as Democrats look to retake the majority in both chambers, are you planning to make an endorsement in the Texas Senate race? And two, yesterday, Congresswoman Crockett said that she won't need to win all the Trump voters in order to win the Texas Senate race. And given that state is dominantly red, would you say that it's vital that any candidate projects their message across the board to every single voter in order to win the state?
Well, I think I'm obviously focused on the House, not the Senate, and we're only 3 seats short of taking back the majority, and we are going to take the majority back in the next Congress. The Republicans have been a disaster. They're totally on the run. They failed the American people. The cost of living is out of control. Democrats are the only group of people in this town and across the country actually interested in dealing with the affordability crisis. That's where our focus will continue to be. Donald Trump and Republicans don't even think that there is an affordability crisis. I mean, Donald Trump had the nerve to call it a hoax and a scam. Think about that. This guy just regularly lies to the American people. The same person who ran on affordability last year when he was trying to convince the American people to vote for him, and even said along with Republicans that they were going to lower the cost of living on day one, now says there is no affordability crisis. To me, that's what the American people are concerned about. Which party is actually committed to making their life better? That would be us, Democrats, as demonstrated last month in the off-year elections all across the country, which is why Democrats decisively won up and down the ballot. In terms of what's happening in Texas in the Senate race, before anyone gets to the general election, obviously there's going to be a competitive primary, and so we'll see what happens during the first Tuesday in March.
Do you think any endorsement from you might add fuel to that fire and help get a win?
We're still in the process of working through the House battlefield, so I've got no visibility into what we might do at any point into the future relative to the Senate. At the moment, we'll leave that to Chuck Schumer and the crew over there. You got it? You? Yeah. We'll go you, and then we'll go to you. How's that work?
If Republicans try to pass the NDAA on suspension, will Democrats provide enough votes for that to pass, and how will you vote?
Well, that's still going to be evaluated. We have a leadership meeting today at 5:15. Then we have a steering and policy meeting where we'll have that discussion at 6. And then we'll have a caucus meeting tomorrow where we'll hear a presentation about the NDAA as well as differing perspectives that might exist as to whether the bill has gone far enough at this particular moment to merit overwhelming support from the House Democratic Caucus. That remains to be seen.
I want to ask about Congressman Henry Cuellar. Now that he's been pardoned by President Trump, do you think it's appropriate for him to be brought back into the fold, to be given his appropriations title back?
It's my expectation, consistent with the rule that exists relative to this very issue, and as has been the case in past practice, that he would be restored to the ranking member subcommittee position that he's previously held. And it's my understanding that the Appropriations Committee on the Democratic side will be meeting to take that business up in short order.
Congressman Luna last night accused you of blocking her stock ban discharge petition. She said that you're stonewalling. Any comment or reaction to that?
Here's the interesting thing. I've never had a conversation with her. Know nothing about her commitment to this issue. And if she wants to lay out a path forward on this stock ban issue where she parachuted in to the middle of it, she has not been part of the bipartisan conversations that have been ongoing led on our side by Seth Magaziner, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, and Representative Pramila Jayapal, along with Joe Morelli, has not been part of those conversations. They've been led by Chip Roy. She parachutes into this situation. Nobody fully understands her intention. She's had zero conversation, as far as I can tell, with any of us. And so she's just shooting off at the mouth, as she always does. She's undermining her own credibility and position. If she wants to have a conversation, find me on the floor. It's Democrats who are actually serious about enacting a congressional stock ban. And we're committed to using every tool available to make sure that this happens. Why doesn't Representative Anna Paulina Luna go talk to the Deputy Speaker, Mike Johnson? He's the one that a few days ago said her discharge petition was dead on arrival. See, when she runs off at the mouth, she loses all credibility. Talk to your own team. We're committed to this effort on the House Democratic side. And as a matter of fact, if she's interested in dealing with corruption, do something about the active ongoing crime scene coming out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The most corrupt administration in American history, and it's not even close. And we don't hear a peep from her or any of her colleagues about even extending the stock ban to the executive branch, to Donald Trump, to J.D. Vance, or perhaps even to the Supreme Court. So we're committed to this issue as Democrats. We want to make it happen. The only open question about whether we're going to move forward and deal with this aspect of cleaning up corruption in this town, a congressional stock ban, is whether Republicans have the will to partner with us in a bipartisan way. Thank you, everyone.
Billy, not calling on you, huh?